luck. He's going to, first start for the Orioles. He's only had 2 appearances in the big leagues this year. One early in the year, and then one, about a month ago.
The bases loaded, 1 out, bottom of the first. Gardner at .258, 17 homers, 47 RBIs.
Gardner lines that to left center field. A long run. Santander can't get there and start the merry-go-round. 1 run scores. 2 runs scores. Torres is in. It's a bases-clearing triple for Brett Gardner. And the Yankees take a 3-0 lead.
Ford struck out his first at-bat.
As Ford trying to go deep in this one. He did. That's into the bullpen. Mike Ford with his 4th home run of the season. It's 5-3 Bombers.
Here's Gleyber Torres, 2 on, no one out in the 5th. And Gleyber swings and drills one. Deep left field. It is high. It is far. It is gone. It's a 3-run home run for Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres hits his 12th home run against Baltimore. Wow. A 3-run blast. And the Yankees have an 8-3 lead. But here's another right-hand hitter.
The season numbers versus the Orioles. Season numbers versus the Orioles are just silly for Gleyber Torres. Whenever Gleyber Torres goes deep, I think about Gary Thorne's frustration in May.
In the air to right field, Mancini going back on the ball by Torres. Way back, up, and...
Good afternoon, folks. So those are just some sound bites from the second game of the doubleheader with the Yankees and Orioles yesterday. And the Yankees took both games, and they now improved to 15-2 on the year against the Baltimore Orioles. And the Yankees have also outscored the Orioles by 62 runs in those 17 games this season. Good afternoon, everybody. It is your host, Tim Sullivan, with yet another episode of the Quadruple Play podcast. And we picked up right where we left off from yesterday, as the Yankees, as aforementioned, just gave the Orioles a drubbing, as they have for pretty much the entire season. And now, the big story of the day was, of course, Gleyber Torres, as he set all kinds of records against the Baltimore Orioles yesterday, as Torres became the first player he set the record yesterday for the most home runs against a single team in league history yesterday. He surpassed Sammy Sosa's record of 12 home runs back in 1998 versus the Milwaukee Brewers, and he hit his 13th late in the game yesterday. And for some context, here are Gleyber Torres' numbers against the Orioles this year. This season, Gleyber Torres against the Baltimore Orioles is hitting .414, .485 on-base percentage. He's slugging .1138 against them. He scored 20 runs. He has 3 doubles, as aforementioned, 13 home runs, and 20 RBIs against the Orioles this year in 17 games. Or in 16 games, rather. And I know what you're thinking. It's the Orioles. And you're right, it is the Orioles. But against any major league team, those numbers are just still simply astronomical. And we hope Torres can keep it up, of course, as the regular season begins to wind down, as we go through this month and go through September. And here's the bottom line, folks. The Yankees had a bit of a struggle when they lost 2 straight a couple of days back. The bottom line is this team is still won 11-13, and we all know they are going to win the division at this point. And the most exciting thing for the Yankees at this point of the season obviously remains as to whether they can in fact attain the best record in the American League. As of right now, they are in fact 2 games up on the Houston Astros, and we shall see whether that remains to stay stagnant or whether the Yankees can give themselves a little more of a cushion. And with a .658 winning percentage, the Yankees are tied with the LA Dodgers for the best winning percentage and the best overall record in baseball. And in the AL Central, the Indians took the entire series from the Twins, and they now remain tied atop the AL Central. Well, actually, they're a half game up on the Minnesota Twins. And I said earlier in the season, this was before my podcast began, but something just told me that because of the lack of depth in the rotation, And because of the weakness of the back end of the bullpen, something just told me that the Twins would fall off after a while. And so far they have. And they could rebound. Do I see that happening? No. The class of the AL is the Yankees and the Astros this year. And the class of the NL, at least for the past 2 or 3 weeks or so, has been the New York Mets. The Mets have still won 15 of the last 17 games, and there's no reason to panic over the fact that they did lose last night. Here's the bottom line. The Mets are only 1 game out from the second wild card spot. They have a better rotation than the Cardinals, and they can outscore anyone if they want to. The Mets have had really not too many issues scoring runs in bunches this year. But the bottom line, folks, is this. Right now, it's a very exciting time to be a New York baseball fan, whether you happen to side with the Bombers or with the Amazons. And if both teams can make the playoffs, I mean, that would only be the 5th time in my lifetime. I'm 22 years old. That would only be the 5th time in my life that the Yankees and Mets have played in the postseason in the same year. The previous times have been 1999, 2000. Obviously, they both met in the World Series that year. Yankees won it in 5. 2006, the Yankees lost in the first round. The Mets lost on a Carlos Beltran strikeout looking in the NLCS. And 2015, Yankees lost in the wild card game, and the Mets went on to win the pennant, but came up short against the Royals in the World Series that year. But in terms of other New York sports teams, or specifically the New York Football Giants, it's not quite as exciting, because earlier today, Giants owner John Mara had some rather, well, we'll put it this way, he did not mince words when he was asked about the current state of the quarterback battle between Eli Manning and rookie quarterback Daniel Jones. He had this to say.
Ideally, how would you like it to unfold for this season and beyond?
I hope Eli has a great year and Daniel never sees the field. I mean, that would be in an ideal world. You'd like to see that. So, but again, it's at the end of the day, it's going to be a decision by the head coach as to when, or if Daniel ends up playing this year.
Is that should really give you would? I mean, obviously you want the team to win a lot of games in the playoffs, but if Daniel doesn't play one snap as a rookie, you'd be okay with that?
I'd be very happy about that because it means that we're having a great year and Eli's having a great year.
Well, you see, John Mara, there are a couple of problems with that. Number one, if Eli Manning remains under center all season long, that does not necessarily mean your football team is having a great year. And as a matter of fact, if Daniel Jones never sees the field, that just means that you're not truly convinced that he was worth a first-round pick at the number 6 spot. I mean, last I checked, Eli Manning remained under center all of last year, and what happened? The Giants finished 5-11. And Dave Gettleman, the Giants' incumbent general manager, will try to tell you otherwise. He said, in the second half, a lot of our games were close, we came close. No. What do the fans see? What do your bosses see? What do the players see? They saw that they lost 11 of 16 games and didn't even come close to sniffing the playoffs. This is a football team that has not won a playoff game since the 2011 season, the last time the Giants got to the Super Bowl. And they've been to the playoffs once in that time, where they got absolutely annihilated in Green Bay by Aaron Rodgers and company. So, as if Giants PR couldn't have been any worse today with John Mara not mincing words, wide receiver Golden Tate, whom the Giants recently signed to a 4-year, $37.5 million deal, has lost his appeal and will be suspended for PED violations and will miss a quarter of the season, the first 4 games. So, there goes Eli Manning's best target. You have Sterling Shepard's injury, and so the question is, which Giants receiver is going to step it up? Which one? Well, Evan Ingram, a young, very promising tight end who's also had a history of drops, even coming out of college, could he step up? Or do you rely on Saquon Barkley to keep running wheel routes out of the backfield? Because the way it's going right now, the Giants are going to end up being extremely over-reliant on one player. Maybe Cody Latimer could become your number 1 receiver in that time. Or maybe Benny Fowler? Or maybe the veteran Russell Shepard steps in. The bottom line is this is a Giants offense that's probably going to be putrid for the first 4 games of the season, now that what was going to be the number 1 target is now gone. I mean, what kind of world are we living in now where there's a lot of hype surrounding this New York Jets football team with Sam Darnold, with the arrival of Le'Veon Bell? People have raved about how Sam Darnold has looked in camp so far. I mean, for years with the Jets and Giants, it was like comparing the Yankees and the Mets, you know? Yankees and Giants, big brother. Mets and Jets, little brother, little sister even. Now not so much anymore. So, quite a role reversal, to say the least. And speaking of role reversals, how about Antonio Brown? Antonio Brown has finally reported back to training camp after reportedly contemplating or even threatening retirement over the fact that he cannot wear his old football helmet due to the fact that it is no longer certified. Now, a lot of people have speculated that perhaps Antonio Brown was using it as a diversion in order to distract people from his frostbite, his foot injury, which he sustained due to the fact that he was wearing the wrong footwear during cryotherapy. I find that hard to believe. I mean, Antonio Brown doesn't rank too high on the common sense scale, but, I mean, a lot of people were outraged when the Steelers traded him away for what amounted to basically nothing. I think the Steelers knew what they were doing. And honestly, I'm not so sure if someone like Antonio Brown is worth all of the drama at times. I really don't. Now, you might think I'm insane for that given his production over the years. But you know what? What did he end up winning in Pittsburgh? Nothing. You know, it's a lot like Odell Beckham Jr., 2 dynamic receivers who haven't won anything. The closest Odell Beckham ever got to a Super Bowl with the New York Giants was dropping several passes in the blowout loss in the wildcard game against the Green Bay Packers. With Antonio Brown, the closest he ever got to a Super Bowl was when he had 1 reception for 3 yards in Super Bowl 45 against the Packers. That's how well he played in Super Bowl 45. And then in the 2016 season, he had 7 receptions for 77 yards against the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game in January of 2017. So, that's how great he's been in the 2 biggest games he's played in his career. So, you can direct your outrage all you want for teams releasing diva wide receivers like that. I think both teams kind of knew what they were doing when they were getting rid of them, and we hope for the best for both of them, of course, but it's good to know that Antonio Brown does not want to retire over a dispute over a helmet that he's no longer allowed to wear. Never mind your own safety or well-being as a football player. And perhaps the helmet had some sentimental value to him. I know Tom Brady recently came out and said that he's had difficulty adjusting to new helmets, and I understand helmets can fit your head differently, different spacing, different airflow through the helmet, different microphone positioning, particularly for quarterbacks like Mr. Tom Brady. But, I mean, give me a break. Antonio Brown, with the Facebook Live, and his feuds with the Steelers brass and Ben Roethlisberger, and his temper tantrums on the sideline because he didn't get the football, and now this with the cryotherapy and threatening to retire over his helmet. I mean, enough is enough. You know what? The Raiders just handed you $50 million. And you are the 3rd highest paid receiver in football right now. You're making almost $17 million a year. So you know what? It's time for you to grow up and report to training camp and be a man. And be there for your teammates, something that you weren't in Pittsburgh. And with more unfortunate injuries also come Andrew Luck, who has unfortunately been injury-prone the past several seasons. Missed all of 2017, and he had a great rebound season last year. But now, Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay has revealed earlier today that Andrew Luck's absence from training camp is due to, quote, a bone injury in his lower left leg. I think after the Kevin Durant injury,